Or what's a fun fact that you want people to know about you that we might not know? We prefer the more embarrassing one, but
I'm glad you gave us a choice here. So I'll go first here. I'll go with fun fact here. So one thing that I think people started to learn from me over the course of this pandemic is that I have an obsession with making my own bagels from scratch. And I actually been having, I did a cooking class, a virtual cooking class with my supporters, teaching them the steps. I learned this when I guess this is another fun fact. I went to this school called Deep Springs College, which is out on a cattle ranch in the California desert. So I had to learn to make my own foods, my own breads in order to enjoy it. So I wanted a taste of the East Coast, learn to make really good bagels, and continue to do so. So I'm happy to share my recipe or do a cooking class maybe for an Aspire event later down the road. But that's something that I've been sharing more and more lately.
We're going to take you up on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll take you up on that too. I'll trade you some lumpia for some bagels. All right, Andy.
That sounds perfect.
That's not for a trade. I'm gonna have to go with the fun fact myself. There's too many embarrassing moments with me, but I think it may be Barbara Lee too, but I think I may be one of the only or very few members of Congress that's actually an African chief. All right. And an honorary African chief from the time I used to live and work in West Africa. And it was so fun to be out there and actually trying to make a difference in another part of the world. But I have, just to finish it up, and there's a story that really struck me just in the last couple of weeks before we came back to our district. One of the last nights I was in Washington, I walked down to BLM Plaza or Lafayette Square, which is right out in front of the White House. And I ran into a homeless woman, and it was about midnight there. And we were looking across BLM Plaza at the White House, which is all darkened now. It's behind fences and barricades and everything else. And I asked this woman, I said, well, what do you think of that? And we're looking at the White House. She goes, it'll be nice when we turn the lights back on. And that's what we're all going to have a hand in doing, turning the lights back on to the White House and America. So thank you, everyone, for being here tonight, for all that you do.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Andy and TJ, for your tremendous efforts. I want you all to know, as our colleague, neither of them represent, as I said, large API constituencies in their districts, but they are some of the most generous in their time and their efforts in helping to lift up the API community through KPAC, Aspire PAC, and just nationwide. So I want to thank Andy and TJ for your tremendous leadership, and we'll get those embarrassing facts from you next time. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Grace.
Thank you, Grace.
So next up, actually, we didn't tell any of you, but we have a really cool surprise. He's a little busy this week, but he was gracious enough to join us. He is the chairman of our Democratic Party, Tom Perez, and he wanted to stop by and say hello to all of you. I have been so proud to work under Tom's leadership at the DNC the last about 3 years. He and his team have done incredibly important work, not always the most exciting or the most appreciated work, to revolutionize our party infrastructure, fight voter suppression literally every week, every month in various states, and work across the board to prepare our nominee, Joe Biden, to defeat Donald Trump. He is always there and responsive to our AAPI community, made history by appointing the first ever AAPI CEO to the DNC in Simananda. And just so appreciate your constant efforts to be more diverse and to make our party more inclusive. Thanks, Chairman Perez, for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. It's such a great honor to be with you. Good evening, everyone. I'm coming to you from Milwaukee. We're going to start the second night of the convention in about 30 minutes. This will be a very unconventional convention, but I hope you saw last night It was an inspiring evening. We are not going to allow this epidemic to inhibit our ability to tell the remarkable story of a united Democratic Party building an America that works for everyone. Congresswoman, thank you for your friendship and leadership. You are a workhorse in Congress. You've been a workhorse on the DNC, and you've been such a great friend to me. And I know your district was for quite a while not just an epicenter, but basically the epicenter of COVID. And the way you handled it was so remarkable. And I'm so grateful for what you do for your constituents, what you do for the DNC. And I don't know if you recall, but we had an event in the run up to the 2018 cycle at a restaurant when we could still do that in New York for Aspire endorsed candidates. And I remember having the privilege of going to that event and speaking there, and you had a remarkable stable of candidates, one of whom was a guy named Andy Kim, an Obama alum. And I'm a lifelong Andy Kim fan, and so excited about his victory in 2018. Congressman Cox has been kicking butt out there in California, and your stable of candidates. We had Gina Ortiz Jones come and speak at an event for us, and you may recall that event. She kind of knocked it out of the park, and everybody kept asking me afterward, who is that event? Who is that person? And then we had another event in DC, just to put a little more flavor on it, where we had Hillary Clinton there. And the thing I remember most is that in the rope line, there was a woman who wanted to see Secretary Clinton, and she was so excited that she literally collapsed and fainted. And I was hoping, is there possibly a doctor in the house? And fortunately, there was. Her name is Hiral Tipirneni. And so rather than attending to the politics of the moment, she spent the next hour nursing that person back to health, quite literally. And when the paramedics came, she ended up signing their paperwork. I'm not making this up. We were so proud to support you in 2018. And I think the residents of the 6th Congressional District deserve an ethical leader in Congress. And so I know you're going to pull it out. And then I happened to be down in Texas in the run-up. And I went to something I've not done ever before and ever since. And I went to a phone bank. And we've all gone to phone banks, okay? But have you ever been to a phone bank where they were phone banking in 10 different languages? That's what they were doing in Shreve's district. And while he didn't quite make it to the mountaintop in 2018, like Gina and like Hiral, I knew that their future was bright. And so, Grace, you are a really good judge of talent, because not only the three of them, but everybody else. We've got spectacular opportunity. And to all of you, I want you to know what a spectacular leader Grace is. So this endorsement worked for a lot of folks in 2018. And I'm really proud to be investing in all of your states. That Texodus of Republicans is going to give us some remarkable opportunities in the Congress. And, you know, Arizona today is Nevada 6 years ago. The fundamentals were there. All you needed was great candidates and an organizational structure, and that's exactly what's there. So I come to you with the sobriety born out of the fact that we have a lunatic in the White House. But I come to you with the unrelenting optimism that is a function of all of you and the fact that you've stepped up again. This is indeed a where were you moment. And the answer to that question for all of you is that you're stepping up, you're getting in the arena, and you're going to help us take back our democracy. I'm proud of what we're doing. We have handed over a really muscular infrastructure to the Biden campaign. We're working flawlessly and seamlessly with them. It's, I think, a really good model for future transitions during a presidential cycle. And we are so thrilled with Kamala Harris on the ticket. It has breathed even more energy into an already energy-fueled campaign. So a lot to do. And I wanted to give you a sense, this is the nerve center here. Everything you see tonight, there's live programming in LA. There's going to be live programming in about 15 states. And it all goes through this nerve center behind me. I don't know a damn thing about how to work any of these things, but we've got really, really good people who do. And that's why last night's production was so professional. And that's why tonight through Thursday will be the same thing. So I've got to run because we're about to start and I'm going to be speaking in a little while. But I am so, so grateful for this opportunity to say to everyone who's stepping up, thank you. You are going to be part of history in 76 days. And Grace, thanks again for being such a remarkable leader and friend. Take care.
Thanks. Good luck.
See ya.
Well, thank you so much to Chairman Perez, our surprise guest for all of you this evening. And I want to thank him for recognizing our AAPI candidates who are in the toughest either re-elects or campaigns of our Democratic caucus. And now I want to bring to you someone that we might not have heard as much about because his seat is technically not as tough in terms of flipping it from a Republican to a Democrat. But he is such a trailblazer and such an amazing and patriotic public servant. I'm so honored that he will most likely join us next year in Congress. He is currently the Democratic nominee in Hawaii's open 2nd district. Predecessor is Tulsi Gabbard, Kahele. He currently serves as majority floor leader in the Hawaii State Senate. Kai is an 18-year veteran, pilot and commissioned officer in the Air National Guard, where he logged over 2,000 hours of flight time and commanded dozens of combat missions in Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. In an act of sacrifice and service, he actually deployed with the National Guard this year to help fight COVID-19 on the front lines, and he won his primary. So I'm honored to introduce Kai to share his story. Kai, thank you for all that you do for our country and for being with us tonight.
Mahalo, Congresswoman Meng, and aloha everyone from Hilo, Hawaii. You know, my name is Kai Kahele. Thank you for that introduction. I'm the Democratic nominee for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District. I'm a native Hawaiian, and I'm also of Chinese ancestry. And so I'm deeply proud, if elected to Congress, to join the Asian American and Pacific Islander Caucus and the AAPI Trailblazers, many of which are all on this call. You know, I launched my campaign for Congress in January of 2019, almost 20 months ago, because I strongly felt that the 2nd Congressional District in Hawaii needed new leadership and a new voice in Congress. I passionately felt that it was time that Hawaii return a native Hawaiian to the United States Congress. You know, I often say I walk in the footsteps of my ancestors and of those that came before me, and if elected, would be only the 2nd native Hawaiian since statehood elected to represent Hawaii in the Congress, following the beloved and the late United States Senator Daniel Kahikina Akaka. As an Asian American and Pacific Islander who represent the highest Native Hawaiian and AAPI population in the country, over 26% in the state of Hawaii, I stand with millions of Americans who continue to fight for social justice, tolerance, and a better America. You know, together we can be strong and effective advocates for our AAPI community, all of us on this call, and all Asian American and Pacific Islanders across our country can count on me to be a staunch advocate of advancing AAPI issues and causes in Congress and protecting and expanding voting rights, of comprehensive criminal justice reform, and building a more inclusive economy, and so many other priorities that we all have. I would also like to note that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are one of the fastest growing voting blocs in this country. But Pacific Islanders suffer disproportionately from the harmful effects of COVID-19, the devastating effects of COVID-19. And as someone who just returned from 4 months of active duty with the Hawaii National Guard, answering the call for our COVID-19 relief efforts, I know how important having a strong voice in the Congress will be to represent our AAPI communities. You know, in conclusion, when I think of this election, this historic election, and our historic 2020 Democratic National Convention and how important this is for our country, I think of the late Congresswoman Patsy Takemoto Mink, who was the first woman of color, the first Asian American, and first woman elected to Congress from the state of Hawaii, who spoke at the 1960 Democratic National Convention and who said, and I quote, "How can America stand as the leader of opportunity for some and not all?" And on those great words, I look forward to the general election and joining my fellow AAPI Democrats, Vice President Kamala Harris, and President Joe Biden in Washington in January. Thank you for having me. Mahalo from Hawaii, and aloha.
Mahalo, Kai. Thank you for running and thank you for your service. We're on to our next panel, and I'm so sad we only have like 15 minutes together, but I want to make sure that you all know them and know how to help them, which we'll put in the chat. These three candidates are incredible. They will flip their seats to join us in Congress and help expand our House majority. And I'm sure you've heard their names before. Gina Ortiz Jones, Air Force veteran who deployed to Iraq as an intelligence officer before serving as a national security expert. She lost in 2018 by about 800 votes. And now she scared her opponent. Now it's an open seat. She's running to serve Texas 23rd District. Shri Kulkarni is also a national security expert who has spent his career as a public servant overseas. Shri ran an incredible grassroots campaign in 2018, and his race is a toss-up this cycle. He also scared away his opponent. Dr. Hiral Tipirneni is a cancer researcher and former ER doctor, leadership that obviously we need more of in Congress. She's running to unseat David Schweikert in Arizona's 6th. So I want to start with Gina and Shri. You're both running for Congress in Texas, which is rapidly turning blue. Tom just mentioned it as the Texodus for Republicans, and it has a growing AAPI electorate. How can AAPIs on this call and around the country help Democrats, helped elect Democrats like yourselves across Texas, whether they live in Texas or they want to help from out of state?
So first of all, thank you, Congresswoman, for all your leadership and your help to us, because as API candidates, we don't have the same kind of networks that other people have. But there is something really unique happening here in Texas in particular. We are the fastest growing demographic group in Texas. In my district, for example, we are 20% of the population. So what that means is that people can help us around the country, because the thing that's so strong about immigrant communities, especially the API community, is how tight-knit we are. What used to be a disadvantage, the fact that we could be demonized without any political penalty, now becomes a strength. So in our campaign, we are campaigning in 21 different languages. We had people last year calling into phone banks for us from around the country in Chinese, in Vietnamese, in Hindi, in Urdu. And so if you're not in the district, if you can spread the word, bring more people into our movement, spread the word in your WhatsApp groups, in your WeChat groups, and tell them that it's never been easier to volunteer and also to bring support to our district, because this is a place where our vote really does matter. Our vote isn't just a slight margin. Our vote is 20% of the district. We can elect the first Asian Americans ever in the history of Texas in Gina and myself.
I want to, in just this district, San Antonio to 500 miles west to El Paso, 800 miles of border. It's larger than 30 states. It doesn't have a super large AAPI community, but my lived experience is this district. First generation American, raised by a single mom, proud product of public education, Air Force, ROTC scholarship that allowed me to get an education, serve our country, and come back to make sure my community is well represented. And so, we have an exciting opportunity to flip this seat. We're described as the best pickup opportunity in the country. And I just did some quick math here. My margin, as Representative Meng mentioned, was 926 votes, despite being massively outspent in 2018. So literally, if everyone on this call called about 10, 11 folks, right, we'd win this race. And so that's how close these margins are. And you look, based on these tactics that these other folks are are trying to do on the other side, it's clear they're not going to let go of power. So anything you can do to help us phone bank and text bank and reach folks, because unfortunately it is still too dangerous to campaign in person here in Texas. In some parts of the community, I mean, a perfect example of that, there are two military medical teams that have deployed to 2 border communities in this district where positivity rates are 20+%. So, we really rely on your support. We're trying to do our best. I do a virtual town hall every single week. I'll do my 21st one tomorrow. But phone banking, text banking, these personal touches cannot be underestimated. So please join us, help us do that, GinaOrtizJones.com.
Thank you, Gina. And now we shift over to Arizona. So Hiral, besides saving lives, you have given us this incredible opportunity to flip a seat. Now, winning in Arizona will be in part due to the growing Latino population, which now makes up over 1/3 of the state. AAPIs are a much smaller demographic, but 4% of the population, which could be the margin of victory. How important will communities of color be for your campaign and also other Democratic victories across the state?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Congresswoman Meng, for all of your support and everything you're doing for the AAPI community. We're honored to be here and honored to be here with Sheree and Gina. Every vote is going to matter, right? Because this is going to be a squeaker. We have had recent polling that shows us within the margin of error in 2 different polls. So it is a statistical tie. So it will be down to every single vote. And that's the difference between myself and my opponent, David Schweikert. He is somebody who has taken this district completely for granted. He assumes that because the registration numbers have been in his favor for several years, that everybody with an R next to their name will vote for him. And he has not worked for the right to represent 800,000 people. We have almost 18% of Latinx population. We have about 2.5% AAPI population. But again, they make up, folks who are really engaged voters, people who understand that this is an opportunity to have real representation. Maricopa County is the largest swing county in the entire country right now, and our district is entirely within Maricopa County. So any victory for Mark Kelly, for Joe Biden in Arizona will go right through our district. And folks realize that here on the ground, they are so engaged and excited. And we have people that are participating that really for many cycles prior had not felt that it mattered because they thought it was sort of a assumed victory for a certain party. Well, we have shown them that this district is ready to swing. It is just about to swing. We're right there on the cusp, the demographics have been shifting for multiple election cycles, but it just hasn't gotten to that tipping point until now. So we will be reaching out to everybody. That's what we've been doing from day one. And what we've learned is people are just excited that they'll have a real voice and representation, that it's, this idea that a brown woman, a first-generation immigrant from India could represent Arizonans who are, 5th generation, 10th generation Arizonans. There's so much common ground. The common ground is healthcare, it's retirement security, it's economic opportunities, it's the climate crisis, it's educational quality for our children. All of these things are things we have in common. So I could not be more honored to have this opportunity to be a voice for the 6th district. And folks all across this district are excited. They know that we have a chance to have real representation for the first time in a very long time.
I'm so proud of all your efforts and just the amazing momentum that has been growing for more than one cycle behind your candidacies. And you're such a role model for so many people, especially in our AAPI communities. Can you share with us either one of a skill or talent that you might not have? Sheree, it can't be your multiple languages that you speak because that's a commonly known fact by now. So a talent or skill, or that you save lives, Hiral. This crowd, you guys are overachievers. So a talent or skill that not many people know about yourself.
So I can start. So I did right before the Foreign Service. So I served 14 years overseas in places like Iraq and Israel and Russia. But the job I had prior to that was as a soldier in the Mexican army. Not in the Mexican army of right now, but in the Mexican army of 1836, because the largest production in Texas at that time was the Alamo. And so I was blown up off of buildings. I was shot. I was stabbed multiple times as a Mexican soldier at the Alamo, because every single person who was in acting at that time, whether you were Indian American or Persian American or Arab American or Italian American, anybody who had any complexion whatsoever was signing up for work as a background actor on the Alamo. So that's my claim to fame, which is funny because on my mom's side, I'm actually descended from Sam Houston, which people don't realize here in the district. So I was on both sides of that conflict.
Well, there's a story we wouldn't have predicted.
Yeah.
I will share nothing nearly as incredulous as that one. My fun fact is that I once saved Harrison Ford's life.
Oh.
And it was a virtual save, but in one of the emergency departments where I used to work, we did what we call MedLink, which was give medical guidance to the airlines. And most of them were commercial airlines, but they were also for the private, folks who were flying their own planes. Well, one of them was Harrison Ford, and he patched into our station for medical guidance to go through a simulation where he was pretending to have a heart attack, and I had to walk him through using all the medical supplies and everything. And I couldn't get over the fact that I was listening to Han Solo's voice on the other end of this phone. But in the end, we saved him. He survived, and he thanked me. And when he said my name, I almost said, "You're very welcome, Han." But I kept my composure, and that's my funny ER story.
Pretty cool.
I mean, I don't make bagels. I'm not a descendant like a Texas hero. I'm not cool. But my fun story, I think it is I went great white shark cage diving off the Eastern Cape of South Africa. And this is when you question your life choices, right? You're like, one, I paid to do this. Two, this is when you see the cage and it's dented and rusted. And, and they're like smashing up fish guts to like attract the great white near the ship. But then you hold your breath, you hold down onto the cage, and then you see this great white's mouth like bump itself into the cage. It's one of those times in your life where you like watch your life flash before your eyes, but you're like really proud of the fact that you did it after. Good times.
Thank you, Gina. So thank you, all of you. I wish we could continue, but we have to get ready to watch our convention. I and our community, we are so proud of each and every one of you. Let's do all we can to make sure that these three are elected. Just from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. And as we get ready to watch the convention, I want to leave you with words of an American hero. Not just someone who was my colleague, but as someone who really served as inspiration, especially during these tough times in America, and that's Congressman John Lewis. We have a lot of work to do before the November election. We celebrate this week. We get to participate in a lot of fun and encouraging Zooms. Like this one tonight, and I thank each and every one of you for being here and taking time out of your schedules. But we have a lot of work to do ahead. We need to make sure that these three candidates get elected in some of the toughest elections this cycle. We need to make sure that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get elected. AAPIs can be the margin of victory in many of the battleground states. If you simply look at the states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, that we lost last time, the number of eligible AAPI voters far outnumbered the number of votes that the Democrats lost by. And I'm not blaming our community, but I'm just saying how much more we can do. And that's just in those three states. And in Texas and Arizona, we can make a tremendous difference as well. So as John Lewis said in his final words to us in the New York Times, democracy is not a state, it is an act. And that has been a tremendous motivator for me in the last few weeks, knowing how much more we have to accomplish. It's not just about returning the White House to the Democrats. It's about saving democracy. It's about saving American lives. And all of you on this call know that. That's why you're on this call. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'm sure we will see each other on various Zooms throughout the week and hopefully in person again very soon. So good luck to our candidates. Good luck, everyone, and hope to see you all soon. Mahalo, says Kai. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay